And he tells his enthusiastic audience that he has been to the mountaintop like Moses and he has seen the promised land. And he continues by saying, I may not get there with you, but I know that tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And it's in that famed 2-minute clip, it seems that Dr. King is speaking solely in metaphor. It is a moving and inspiring metaphor, but a metaphor nevertheless. And it is in metaphor that a message can be manipulated, especially when not given the proper context. The actual speech is at least an hour long, and Dr. King is encouraging people to support each other in spite of ongoing injustice that they faced. He gives specific instructions to the crowd about what products to boycott and what to invest in. He talks about strategy and sacrifices that are necessary for success. And he talks about the Bill of Rights, institutional power, and social structure. You see, Dr. King was not just a poetic preacher, he was a strategist with an understanding of how investment and divestment can move policy. He understood how cameras and publicity and newspapers played a role in shaping the narrative of the movement and how it would be remembered in the future. He understood that in order to have an impact, in order to change, one must understand the systems and structures that society operates under, as well as have the fortitude to fight against them when necessary. You see, we often forget, I think, ironically, that Dr. King was a well-educated man and a consummate reader. Now, why do I say that we forget his education when we put doctor in front of the name as a force of habit? Because we act like Dr. King didn't have to learn how structural oppression worked. Like he didn't have to learn how wealth inequality worked. Like he didn't have to learn how racism as a system worked. The funny thing about all the isms, racism, sexism, ableism, classism, is that you can experience it without fully understanding it. You can feel that something's wrong, you can feel that something is unjust, but not have the background to put it in context, nor the vocabulary to have the language to explain what that pain means to you. And so before we can act in a meaningful way, before we can act in a way that doesn't inadvertently cause more harm than good, before we can really act with intention, we must continue, like Dr. King, to learn, to study, and continue to adapt. And so when I teach folks about prejudice and discrimination and systems of oppression, I teach because these systems were in place long before we got here. And we're taught to either see them as normal or not see them at all. You know, so if black people live on one side of town and white people live on the other side of town, some will say, that's not racist, it's just normal. If we rarely, if ever, see any books or movies that show Native Americans living in our modern day and being a part of the fabric of America, someone will say, that's not racist, that's just normal. And if we see poor children in poor education systems with less money because it is the income taxes that fund education and it is lower in poor neighborhoods, people will say, that is not a system designed to help others and hurt others based on income, that's just normal. In order to fight injustice, every one of us, no matter our background, must learn to unsee normal. And me as a black person, it was important for me to learn the obvious and subtle ways that racism shaped my life, but also learn how other parts of my identity, such as my citizen status, gave me advantage over millions of people. In my journey, I've realized how my liberation is intimately tied to the liberation of others. And learning about the struggles of people with disabilities, of indigenous people, of the LGBTQ community has helped me both understand the oppressions that I face, as well as understand the ways that I may have ignorantly contributed to their pain and commit myself to doing better. And I'll leave you with this. At the same time that Dr. King was marching and protesting on the East Coast of America, Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta were uniting Filipino and Mexican-American farm workers on the West Coast to fight for justice, fair wages, and better working conditions. During this time, Dr. King sent a telegram to Cesar Chavez stating the following: as brothers in the fight for equality, I extend the hand of fellowship and goodwill and wish for continuing success for you and your members. The fight for equality must be fought on many fronts, in urban slums, in sweatshops and factories, in fields. Our separate struggles are really one, a struggle for freedom, for dignity, and for humanity. You and your fellow workers have demonstrated your commitment to righting the grievous wrongs forced upon exploited people. And together, we are with you in spirit and in determination that our dreams for a better tomorrow will be realized. Thank you.